Hi, I'm Nick Shell, and I assume the reason you're watching this video is because you watched me perform my most recently written song, Enneagram 9, which if you haven't seen me perform that, there is a link in the description. It'll take you to that video where you can watch me perform my newest song live, another 3-minute song, because these songs are my version of therapy, and I learned so much about myself that can only come out through writing songs. Now, this is a special case because this year in 2023, I've spent the majority of this year, as far as my free time goes, writing a book about Enneagram, which should be going out to the public, and you should be able to read that book early 2024. And in the process of writing that book, what's funny about it is I thought I was one number, and it turns out I wasn't. And I had already written the book, and then I had to go back and kind of gut the thing and rewrite it. But 2 years ago, I became certified for Enneagram. And through those past 2 years, I have had at least a moment where I thought I was each of the 9. And that's what happens, I guess, when you are Enneagram 9, which I am, is that you easily see yourself in all 9 types, and you get buried in all those versions of yourself that you don't really know who the real is. You buried deep down inside. So it took getting certified for Enneagram and writing a book about it to even understand which number I was, and that was not the goal of the book. So here we go. Here's this song that I've written. And by the way, I didn't want to just make a cutesy song stereotyping Enneagram 9s. What I wanted to do is ultimately show this has been my story, in that whatever number you are, when you're stressed, you look like a different number. In my case, as a 9, I look more like a 6. And a lot of the songs I've even written the last couple of years, you can see a lot of those ideas. But the reality is, now that I've worked through that, I can see that I actually am 9. So here's the lyrics to it. You never needed me to be by the book, because I'm a 9, I have a one wing that is all detailed. People don't necessarily need that from me. You never needed me to ever give a frantic look. That's in regards to the stress of a 9, looking like an Enneagram 6, which is the one that is worried and anxious, which a lot of my songs and content has been about anxiety, which I feel like I've worked my way through, because that's not me at my best or even my normal. You only needed me to be your Enneagram 9. You never needed me to take charge and be the boss. So I do have an 8 wing, which is my dominant wing, is Enneagram 9, which wants to fill those gaps and be in charge if no one else is. But still, that's not what I need to be focused on most of the time. You never needed me to prophesy potential loss. That's going back to that Enneagram 6. When I'm worried, I look more like that, looking what can go wrong. You only needed me to be like I was in 2009. So ultimately, as I'm writing this song, it's to my wife. Me understanding, after being 15 years into marriage, what she really needed from me, and by default, what the whole world needs from me. But in 2009, that was the year after we got married. We didn't have kids yet. We didn't have scary things happen yet, as far as mortgages and all of that stuff. Life was a lot more relaxed back then, because we weren't in full throttle responsibilities at that point. So that's why I'm referencing 2009. Life got in the way there for a while. I repressed all my anger in a state of denial. Took a little time to thaw out, to reveal what was buried there underneath. Man, that's very important when you're understanding what Enneagram 9 is. They're basically the angriest number of all, but they repress it all. Whereas an Enneagram 8 expresses the anger, and 1 basically refocuses it through reform. A 9 is in denial and repressing all of that anger all the time. And of course, Enneagram 9s don't seem angry. Of course they don't, because we repress the anger more than any other number. To the chorus. But all I had to do was just show up, sit back, relax. That's right, just gotta be chill, and that will keep things from getting too real. Now, Enneagram 7s avoid pain and boredom and suffering by always planning fun things to do and going on trips and adventures and having fun. A 9 is similar, but instead of trying to run from those things, we try to numb ourselves out to those things. We try to basically turn a blind eye to those things. And ultimately, that's why I put the line in there, just gotta be chill, and that will keep things from getting too real, which there is some reality, there is some truth in that for me, that when I am in a situation where I could be aware of stress, instead of freaking out about those things or even alerting those things, if I'm the one that's relaxed in the room, it actually benefits everybody. Everyone else can be relaxed, even if things are chaotic. And I go into that further. Second verse, you always thought of me as your very own, or you always thought of me as your personal Paul Rudd, which I've learned, I've been compared to Paul Rudd for a long time, and I've always, of course, loved Paul Rudd. Turns out he's the same Enneagram as me. He's a 9 wing 8. In any role you see him in, whether it's when he was on Friends or any movie he's in, he's always there. He doesn't necessarily want to be there, but he goes along with stuff. He kind of seems like a grump a lot of times because he doesn't want to be doing the thing, but he always does the thing basically to make everybody happy, because Enneagram 9s are people pleasers. So you always thought of me as your personal Paul Rudd, to shrug it off instead of feeling stuck in the mud. You only needed me to be your Enneagram 9. You always thought of me as your go with the flow. I never seemed bothered if I was, it didn't show. You only needed me to be like I was back in 2009. And then the final verse, don't worry, baby, if the world's gonna end. I'll be your fellow passenger on this sinking ship. You only need me to be along for the ride. And what that's in reference to, again, this whole song is directly written to my wife. And here lately, as I was writing this song, it's in the middle of this whole crisis and this war with Israel. And, you know, something my wife has been saying for a while, she says, doesn't it feel like it's the end of the world? And in our marriage, if I would feed into that energy, it would only make it worse. But I've learned to actually, and that's ultimately word for word what I told her. I was like, well, if this is the end of the world, I'm right here alongside of you, and there's nothing we can do about it, and it's out of our control. So we're in this together. And ultimately, that's not only what basically how I need to see life as far as my relationship with my wife, but it's really for everybody. For me as a true Enneagram 9, it's a matter of me. I think of on the Titanic, when there were people like playing the violins as it was going down. Like, that's kind of my role on the thing. I'm not trying to stop the ship from sinking. I'm not even trying to like save myself or whatever. Just might as well just, I'm along for the ride, and I might as well just try to make it as good as I can for everybody, because, you know, we're definitely going underwater here, and this is the end of it. So, you know, that's I guess a general philosophy for life. Whenever life ends, whether we all go down together or whether we go individually, whether we live 50, 70 more years, we can't control much of life, most things in life. And I understand now my role, and that's been very, very big deal for me, because I haven't known who I really was buried underneath all of this stuff. All I ever was this guy that just goes along with things. And that's really what people need from me. I mean, if I need to take charge, if I need to be in control, if I need to be the leader, I can be, and I can make a decent one. But it's not really what I want to do. It's not what I'm driven for. We all have a superpower as far as Enneagram teaches. And if you're Enneagram 9, it's largely about helping other people cope. And the way you do that is you just go along with it, and you absorb that uncertainty and that anxiety. You ultimately, I don't want to absorb it, I guess, you just let it bounce off, as the saying, let it roll off. And by you doing that, you're allowing other people to do that, especially people who are maybe more intense and worried about things. If you're 9, it's not really your job to worry about that, because you actually make things that much more worse when you can't just be the person that is the relaxed person in the room. All right, I'd love to hear from you if you can relate to any of that. Again, you can watch me perform the song. There's a link there. And also, I'd love to hear from you by you leaving a comment.